Alleghany Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia. Now, oh boy, this is, I suppose, the highlight of my trip here. My pilgrimage of sorts to Buchanan, West Virginia, with questions in my mind, seeking answers. Now, why would I come to the old Weston Hospital that was started around Civil War times, I understand, and closed down in the 80s? I've read that it's the largest stone building in the world next to the Kremlin. And I'm here in Weston, West Virginia at the Alleghany Lunatic Asylum. And I do plan to return here in the next couple months with a very dear friend. We want to take a trip to the Lunatic Asylum and go on the tour together. And I don't know if I can talk my oldest son to coming with me the next time or not, but why would I come here? Well, my mother was hospitalized here in 1946, and about 5 years ago, I actually contacted the department that you would contact to get patient records, and it was a long shot. I'd have to look back to see exactly what process I went through, because I do remember it required several phone calls. But I was the only child of my mother and father, and my mother died in 2001. And of course, she was a quite peculiar and unique person. And she was a former legal secretary, and she had written her will quite, with the legalese in it. But part of the legalese, and I don't know if this is typical or not, but said that I was to inherit all her property, real, and I think it said all tangible and intangible, real and whatever property. I'm sure it's a legal term. But anyway, I said, I'd like my mother's medical records if I'm entitled to that property. I suppose that entails intangible aspects of one's medical history, reputation, or a variety of possible dark family secrets, right? So, to my surprise, they had me submit, a copy of the will, certified copy, a letter, and her death certificate, and proof of who I was. I think I had to give her birth certificate too. And to my surprise, I got in the mail when I was living in Alabama. I guess they had it on microfilm. It was a printed copy. It was a little, at parts, it was hard to read, very old records. But I did, I have the scans of them, and I did retype. I read it and typed it on the computer too, just for clarity and ease in reading, and it was quite interesting. I've been told by family members that my mother's mother, whose name was Mary Effie Carter Linger, she and my grandfather, John Curry Linger, are buried at the Rieger Chapel in Buchanan. I guess it's pronounced the Rieger Chapel. Anyway, I attended church there this morning, and I've connected with a few people there. And, I visited the grave, and I saw the grave of her brother, Carter. I know it's dark. It's really dark, family secrets. And I do have my mother's diaries from 1946 and her references to this incident and how she ended up in this hospital. And even I was looking at it because I brought it with me in the place where I'm staying, the hotel. And I was reading through it yesterday again. It's been several years. And I noticed even in 1967, she was going back making notations and question marks about, and she was obviously angry in her diary. But this old diary in 1967, it was a 1945 diary that appears that she's notated things from both 1945 and 1946. This years ago when I kind of went through it, I got the feeling maybe she had used it for more than 1 year, and so it became a little confusing on the dates. But she did make a notation that Carter was particularly, in quote, violent with her. Now, there were a few times I tried to talk to my mother about her growing up and her childhood. It was hard to really get a clear picture of things, but she did tell me she was raised for her first 3 years by an Aunt Biddy. I don't know if this was her mother's sister or some other relative. It was my understanding this was a spinster aunt. And the best source I've ever had of information about my mother's early life was my Aunt Daisy, who married into the Linger family and was married to my Uncle Steve, which was the next, the 9th child. My mother was the 10th child. Now, Aunt Daisy told me, I was unclear. I remember my mother said that her mother had an appendicitis at one point and gangrene. And for some reason, I thought maybe she died of it. But I do remember Aunt Daisy saying no, she recovered from that. And I believe she may have died of a stroke. She was young, 57, I believe. My mother was a senior in high school. I believe my mother was 17. And I think, I'd have to check back, it was in the fall of her senior year at Buchanan Upshur High School. But Aunt Daisy had said that, I thought that my mother had said she was taken away and raised until she was 3 by this aunt because of her mother's appendicitis. Maybe that's what she was told. I don't know. Some things we'll never know. And, but Aunt Daisy said no, Mrs. Linger, my mother's mother, had some type of breakdown. And that when my mother was returned to her family, she was traumatized. She did not know all these older family, brothers and sisters. I guess she was taken away from whoever she bonded with. If she bonded, I don't know the story. I would love to know the details of this. I don't know how I can find it out. But at any rate, Aunt Daisy said she would have fits as a child and that she acted strange. You know, Aunt Daisy said she went to high school with my mother and she would say just odd things in high school classes and stuff like that. And she did say my mother always acted like she was better than other people. Now, there's all kinds of things I could say about my quest to understand the Linger family and both genetic heritage, what would you call it, losing the word, nature or nurturing, family dysfunction, or even, honestly, spiritual heritage, you know. I know it's a strange question, but I am a Christian, and there's specific reasons I'm wondering. You know, this is rural West Virginia. Was there witchcraft? Anything? I guess, you know, I want to know, what evil has befallen my own life and family, and maybe my mother, and you know, they came from Ireland. There's Celtic stuff. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. But, you know, they do give ghost tours here. I don't know. You know, my belief system on this is very complicated. But I just want to say I am a Christian. My faith is in Jesus. And I was thinking this morning of the song Joy to the World. You know, that, you know, many times we as Christians, there's talk about generational curses, and there's things throughout the Holy Scriptures referring to honor, dishonor, and the sins of the fathers visiting the children to future generations. And there's all kinds of things that's really undocumentable. I mean, we can no better document how the forces of evil come to us through our family, through other people, or situations than we can document or prove our faith in Jesus. But I'm trying to think that He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of, how does that go? The wonders of His love, far as the curse is found, far as the curse is found. The last, I think it's one of the last verses of Joy to the World. But anyway, I'm going to be walking around here and photographing it from the outside. It's a beautiful day here in July 4th, Independence Day in West Virginia here. And so yeah, there's a lot of questions in my mind. Things, one relative said that she wishes that she knew more about our grandmother, Mary, Effie Carter. And so it's my understanding from my Aunt Daisy years ago, she said that Mrs. Linger would go into town and cause trouble. Now, what did that mean? And that Mr. Linger kept her pregnant all the time. Now, I mean, that I have a family photo that I'm looking at the date on it, 1922, Lewis County, West Virginia. That's 100 years ago. I mean, there was no birth control. There was all kinds of things. I mean, the idea that he kept her pregnant just to keep her out of trouble, I mean, it was not unheard of at all to have 10 children. My father was the oldest of 8 children. So I'm not quite buying that. But this idea, I've heard it from other family members, that Mary was a troublemaker. And part of me thinks, yeah, maybe that's it, right? She was just a troublemaker. And maybe all the problems in the Linger family, the John Curry Linger and Mary Effie Carter Linger family, came from her and not the father. I mean, we all have our baggage. We all have, the things. I mean, we're human. We make mistakes. We're a hot mess, right? But, when I think of possible blog titles, yesterday I was thinking, the John Curry Linger and Mary Effie Carter Linger family, they were like the Hatfields and McCoys all rolled into one in one sibling group, right? I mean, my experiences with my mother, my observation of her interactions with her siblings, it's a lot, right? It's a lot to put in words. But so Aunt Daisy said that yes, Mrs. Linger had some kind of breakdown. So I can only imagine. It's my understanding, now that I've explored this town a little bit and talked to different people and read some things, that this place, it was before nursing homes, for one thing, and most elderly people were cared for by family. And if family couldn't care for the elderly person, maybe they were just a little, senile or something, or just needed some care, they would drop them off here, right? Or, if your family member, you just didn't like them for whatever reason, you would just drop them off here, and people were just literally left here. But there were some scary people, from what I understand, like really dangerous criminals, really insane people. I do have her records, and I do intend to continue writing about family history and what I know of my mother's experiences here at the Alleghany Lunatic Asylum. But, part of me, I mean, I've struggled my whole life because of my mother's issues with my bonding with her, with my relationship with her. But part of me thinks, well, like a broken clock is right twice a day, right? Maybe she really did have reason to really be upset at her brothers. Because here's the story I got from my mother, that Robert and another brother, may have been Carter, I thought it was Roderick, but maybe two or three of them showed up. She was in college. She was 22 years old, according to her diary, at Morgantown. And they showed up and she said that there had been some kind of swimming accident or something. My mother didn't swim, so I don't know what that was about. I'd like to contact Morgantown and see, do you have, like, student records, you know? That's my next thing. So my mother always had dentures, and she said she actually lost her teeth at a young age, right? My mother, I remember her telling me that these brothers showed up at her school, her dorm, or wherever she was, and they wanted to take her. My mother said that they smashed her front teeth out. Is that true? I don't know. I did notice yesterday, and it's kind of, I'm starting to put things together. She said Carter was very violent with her. Now Carter died. Looks like he was about maybe 47 years old, and that's a whole other family story, you know. But so yeah, so they took her away, and I'll go on past this with what the records say, the report of, I do believe Robert was one of the people that signed, what they said was wrong with my mother. Now, who knows, like, given her problems, given the immense problems in the whole family, the 6 men, as I understand it, in the family were plagued with, well, first of all, when I'm on a little bit of a witchcraft hunt or whatever, folklore or whatever in these hills, I've heard that there's something called the linger luck, right? Like, was that a term like one cousin group coined, or was that a term known to the older people in the family? I don't know, but I know I've had a lot of really negative, bad luck coincidences a lot in my life. And what is that? Is that a curse? I don't know. But, whatever it is, I'm against it, right? But, yeah, so I was on a train of thought there about, they came and they took her here, right? Oh, so what they said was wrong with her, So, yeah, so my point was, okay, so it's my understanding, general knowledge of the John Curry Linger family, and I understand there's a lot of Linger clans around here. I didn't know that the name was so popular in this area, that are probably no relation to my grandparents. But the 6 men were plagued with gambling, alcoholism, and who knows what, stuff, just a lot of dysfunction. I asked in town at one of the historical places, was there a lot of gambling in this area? Like, where did that come from? I didn't know, like poker rings, casinos, and she said, no, not really. So, but anyway, there's that. The women, the 4 women, as I understand it, from my Aunt Daisy and others, all had emotional problems. And it's my understanding and observation that the men kind of controlled the women in the family, but I was told by my Aunt Daisy my mother was the worst. Now, who knows what it meant for my grandmother to be called a troublemaker. Someone I talked to in Buchanan yesterday, a woman she said she was 46. We were talking, and she says, well, in this town back then, if you were a woman and a troublemaker, maybe it meant that, you were outspoken. You spoke your mind, or you just said what you thought, and so you were a troublemaker. Now, we all see things through our own lenses, right? So, and, in the year 2022, there's a lot of views about women, the role of women. I don't dismiss that could be a possibility. I mean, my mom's family, they're very intelligent, they're educated, they've got a lot of energy, they're creative, they're passionate. The ones I know of, they've got a lot of qualities, that go along with high intelligence, high creativity, high success, high energy, high drive, mood, up and down, what is that? I don't know. I have my own views about that, but sometimes I think, oh dear goodness, if only my mother would have put all her energies into like something productive, rather than like calling the FBI or all the things she did that were very, very peculiar. She certainly, in retrospect, the things that I have now to really base, tangible things of her condition, she really seems in the more paranoid schizophrenic category. I don't know. But yeah, she had a lot of mania and all kinds of stuff, and continue reading on my blog if you want to know more. And a friend and I, we're planning to do a talk podcast too, to discuss just family issues, women's issues, marriage, children, um, craziness, my story, all kinds of stuff. We just, I think it's cool that, we can come coming connection with others that really do want to hear our story. We all have a story. We all want to be found in a story, and a story that's bigger than ourselves, right? But I guess I'm about to wind down this introduction here. I just, yeah, I feel like there were a few more points. This is unscripted, and I'm just speaking off the top of my mind and from my experience this weekend. And it is quite warm out here, I will say. But yeah, the brothers came. They took my mom. They put her in here. Spoiler alert: she had electric shock treatment, hydrotherapy, all kinds of, But okay, so that's there's more to come out. But one question I have in my mind. I remember how I wanted to end this. This is about 20 minutes. I took the scenic route, and I went some beautiful, beautiful back roads, and I did even stop and do some little sketching and stuff. But so it took me more than 20 minutes to get here, but theoretically it's about 20 minutes from Buchanan, West Virginia. And it was pretty much, as I understand it, the only mental hospital near that area. If someone had some kind of problem, this is where their family would take them. I really want to know, was my grandmother in here? Did when my mother was born, for whatever reason, did the family need to, want to, or whatever, have to put her here? And what happened to my grandmother there? Because I'll tell you, and this is a little far-fetched, when we don't have answers, our mind can go into like the realm of speculation. I mean, I don't know much about her, but I do study her face and her expressions in photos of when she was older. She looks very like flat, like she looks like she has no expression, emotion. She looks very unfriendly, unkind, but maybe, dear goodness, we hope they didn't lobotomize her or something. I mean, from what I've read about lobotomies, which happened here regularly starting in the 1800s, so 1923 they were into that too. I was reading last night that initially the person is dazed, confused, they can't function, they get incontinent and all that. I mean, maybe it took her 3 years. Maybe she did have like postpartum. Like she was about 40 years old when my mother was born. It was the 10th child. And maybe she did have some emotional problems during her life. I mean, who knows? Talk about like her being a troublemaker. Here's a possibility. What if my, I don't know anything. All I know is that John Curry Linger was a hard man. He was very exacting. Family story is he gives the boys like one bullet to go out hunting, and they had, HELL to pay, I was told, if they didn't come back with, a catch. My mother was a stickler for McGuffey's Reader, punctuation, all this stuff, and he was a school teacher, and he was known as John Rock Linger, I understand, because he was just so stern and strict, and I always thought the problems came from that. But who knows? Like maybe he couldn't keep Mary in line, or maybe he was abusing her or something. Who knows? I'm just throwing it out there. Because I tell you, there's been stuff happening in my life, in the life of my children, that I just hate, right? And I want answers. And I want Jesus to come and break the curse of the human need, suffering, our need for Jesus to redeem all these things, and for all of us to be found in a good story of God's love, and family and connections. And when family is not a healthy connection, then it's terrible to disconnect. But there's a lot of things going on in our world these days, and I plan to talk more about that too. But I'm thinking, was she a troublemaker because maybe she, the Lingers love to talk, right? I've heard, and obviously I've gone 25 minutes here, so I guess I am a linger. I like to talk, right? Hopefully I'm making sense. I'm telling a good story. I'm holding attention here, I hope. So, maybe in those hills, like Mr. Linger was not loving and caring for his wife too well, and maybe she went into town talking about it, or maybe she was depressed and went on some spending spree. Who knows what? People are complicated. We are spiritual people. We are wounded. We are bruised. We respond. What is this? And so maybe she was a troublemaker in that way. I'm sure I've bled all over Facebook at times, and I've bled all over listening ears and caring friends, family, people I trusted, because I've been, distraught in my life, right? But, the scripture said, I believe it just came to my mind, the righteous may fall 1,000 times, but the Lord brings them up. It's He that holds their hand. And, I think when I came here the other night, my first night here, I thought of the line, Jesus sought me while a stranger, wandering from the fold of God. And being found by Jesus when I was in such need after my father died, and with the situation with my mother, and I was 18, and, He found me, right? But evil can find us too, right? Can we be found? Can we be, unhappy with the story that we're finding ourselves in now? Yes, we make choices in these stories. We make choices, and God works with